How you doing,
Awesome.
man? How you doing?
Good, man. Good. How are you?
I'm doing all right, man.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Awesome.
thanks for giving me the opportunity.
Yeah, man, of course. Thanks for coming on. I'm really interested in like, just the recovery aspect of like fitness and everything like that. It's a big subject right now, especially. So I wanted to kind of talk to you about it.
Okay, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So whenever you're ready, we can get started.
Yeah, so I mean the recovery I go with is massage therapy. Obviously, you
Right.
probably know I run the torture room, located inside the Dragon's Lair in Las
Mhm.
Vegas. So I mean I fell into massage therapy back in like 2015, and
Mhm.
I had just gotten out of bodybuilding myself a little bit. Obviously was just in the amateur ranks, but I
Mhm.
didn't know the value of massage while I was competing. But it was after I realized how well the benefit of massage therapy could be, not just for athletes but for everybody. So that's really when it started. I really wanted to get into that.
So so while you were competing, you didn't use like any kind of recovery tools or to like, progress your athletics forward. You didn't use massage therapy or anything like that?
No, no, I really it never crossed my mind. The the coach I was working with never brought it up, so it wasn't even spoken about in the gyms
Hmm.
that I was training at. Like nobody talked about healthcare, and maybe it was just something that's behind the scenes. Maybe something that it's just not a. I don't think it was just a big topic that people talk about a lot. Is the recovery aspect, whether it be tissue work, chiropractic care, dry needling,
Hmm.
therapy sessions, or even doing like cold therapy, you know, like cryotherapy is booming these days now and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I've started to do my own, cryotherapy, like just ice baths, and off of the few times that I did it in the morning after like really training hard, I felt like huge difference, just not only in the way I felt from a like a musculature training aspect, but just my own like mental state too. Like you just feel better throughout the day after you do it. It's really amazing. It's like I didn't even realize how beneficial it truly is. Have you tried like cryotherapy yourself?
I only tried it once.
Hmm.
I did it more for my joints,
Hmm.
shoulder and elbows, things like that. But it did really help with the inflammation. I really try to push that to a lot of athletes that I work with. Like, you got to try cryo,
Hmm.
especially, because they come to me when it's a tissue problem, the muscles feel tight, knotted up.
Hmm.
But if it gets too close to the joints where they're like, dude, the shoulder joint doesn't feel right, it's inflamed, things like this, I'm like, go try cryo.
Yeah.
And I think the science just in healthcare is just advancing so much that even for bodybuilding, everything is coming down to a science,
Hmm.
from food to vitamins to timing your food to timing your sessions, your workout sessions,
Yeah.
how to get blood flow to be at, you know, optimum range. And now people are really going towards massage therapy.
Hmm.
And
Yeah, I find that like is super interesting because so let's kind of dig into like specifically what you do. You said that people come to you when they have like knots and like tissue, like how severe, uh how can I put this in the right way, like how severe can it be for you to be able to help them? Like, can it get to a certain point where you're like, massaging is just not going to do it? You're going to need something a little bit more intense than this.
um, obviously, if they had a tear, a muscle tear,
Hmm.
whether it's level 1, 2, or 3, whether it's something minor, that needs to heal up, because putting any pressure on any kind of, even a micro tear, can just inflame it even worse. It's usually the worst thing athletes hate to hear is you need a rest for a few days. Everybody still wants to. Everyone wants to be like, dude, I can go, I can tough it out. But it's mostly if there's an injury like that, or it
Hmm.
gets too close to the joint where it's ligament related. Their range of motion is just really, really bad too. It's extremely painful. And I'm like, hey, you have to get checked out first. Let me know what the docs say. Let me know, get an MRI, something. And that way I can treat it better, to get things back to normal, because you never know what you'll need.
Yeah, yeah. I saw that on your page. You mentioned as your therapy being aggressive. When you say that, like, what do you exactly mean by that?
Aggressive. It's usually when I'm talking about the gua sha that I do. A
Okay.
lot of people think I'm certified in Graston because that's just a big name that everyone talks about, but I'm actually certified in gua sha. That's more Eastern medicine.
Okay.
But it's when I talk about how aggressive, it's only in certain times of people's athletes training. So it's more when they're in their growth season. Keeping the tissue pliable is what helps keep the muscle growing. But people just disregard getting tissue work, that they go months without it. And there's so much fibrotic tissue, like scar tissue, that gets embedded inside the muscle fibers that needs to get broken open. And when that can get broken open, cleared out, and it's pretty aggressive to do that. And
Mhm.
some people do it a little bit with Graston, but it's not really preached when you go to a Graston course. It's like, don't do that, don't do that. But you go to Gua Sha, they preach it like, no, it's actually a pretty good thing because, not only does it promote so much red blood cells, but the white blood cells that help clean everything out. And
Interesting.
so, and it can get pretty aggressive. I mean, when
Right.
somebody, I wouldn't be as aggressive with just an average person who, is non-athletic, maybe just an example, the bank teller, they're just go to their 9 to 5,
Yeah.
wrestle home with the kids. That's bad. They're just stressful in their mind. But when somebody's like, whether it's even these bikini girls, everywhere from bikini to open bodybuilding, dude, they're killing it in the gym. They're putting their
Mhm.
body through a lot of stress. So the muscle tissue is more dense. So you have to penetrate just a little bit deeper. And it keeps the muscle pliable longer. And that will
Interesting.
then promote more muscle growth when they actually like train better. Like more blood flow gets pushed in their how they're eating, their diet, the vitamins, supplements, everything.
So interesting. So you're saying that, like, because of the fibrotic tissue, if you don't get it regularly treated in this type of fashion, what happens is that you don't, it prevents like the blood flow, therefore like prevents nutrients, therefore prevents like other things, because everything obviously goes through the blood. Is that like the sense of what I'm getting? Is that
Yeah,
correct?
yeah. Um, yeah, there's a term for it. It's called a hypoxic.
Okay.
When the muscle tissue becomes hypoxic. And that just means, the red blood cells are just too corroded in there. And it's not filtering in good oxygen levels and everything else that it carries with it. So,
How does someone know that that's happening to them? Is that just something that's gonna happen if you train as hard as some of these athletes train, or is this something that you can tell, like, from your, just day to day, like when you become hypoxic? Is that something that you can physically feel and tell?
mhm. Yeah, as soon as your body is so unique, it will start to give you those lingering aches, you know,
Mm.
where, and I hear it a lot of times. People are like, and you don't even have to be athletic. You can just be, the average Joe. It's stress that causes it. Stress can cause it as well, any level of stress. But it's when I hear it so often when people are like, nothing's happened to me. I haven't been in an injury, no slip and falls, no car accidents. I don't train hard. I go for walks, but I have this lingering ache in my upper back,
Mm.
or, my shoulders just feel achy and they've never felt this way. That's usually the number one indicator that blood flow is restricted just a little bit.
Yeah, that tends
And
to be. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, and that's when people usually start going towards pre-workouts and stuff like that, things that will dilate the blood vessels a little bit more
Mhm.
to, and it's like, okay, now you're introducing something else. But I try to preach to a lot of people, like, just keep the muscle tissue healthy. That's all it is. Everybody wants to do this longevity, you know.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting that you mentioned they go to the pre-workout. So it's almost like it's helping a little bit, it's kind of masking it, but it's not really treating the real cause of the problem. I noticed that a lot of times whenever I hear of anybody being tense, it's always, like you said, in those areas, like in the shoulders and the upper back, kind of like, is there a reason like why it starts there? Is there that you've noticed, or is it just something that happens?
Well, the shoulder is the most mobile joint that we have, so we use it for everything: push, pull, just your day-to-day things. Everything we do is like forward motion. So even running is an upper body sport. Those shoulders are just getting
Mhm.
taxed like crazy. So it's just because it's the most mobile joint that we have. So we use it with everything that we do.
Interesting. Do you so I was going to ask you this a little earlier when we were talking about the aggressive massage therapy. So is deep tissue just a general term for like everything that's done that's kind of aggressive, or is that a specific type of massaging that's different from what you do?
Deep tissue is totally different than
Okay.
what I do. So, and I actually had this conversation with another massage therapist the other day. They
Mhm.
commented on a video that I did, saying like deep tissue at its finest. And I think I was working with Missy Truscott on that
Mhm.
video. And another massage therapist was like, that's not deep tissue. Because in general terms, when you're like, I think I need a deep tissue massage, you kind of want to feel some pressure.
Mhm.
Um, but I told him, I'm like, no, you're actually right. If you actually take a deep tissue course, they strongly preach do not apply pressure. It's all about heat. It's just bringing enough friction to the surface of the muscle to let it melt in
Hmm.
some kind of fashion to where it feels soft again. But there's no pressure. And that's what they really preach. And if you take a deep tissue course,
That's
then
really interesting that you say that, because like as a person that's not acquainted with too acquainted with the work that you do, it's when you hear the term deep tissue, you're immediately thinking of like them really grabbing and getting into like the muscle, but you're saying that's not technically true.
that is completely false. That is
Hmm.
what they do not teach that in any course.
Hmm.
You in a nutshell, you warm up your hands with enough friction, and then you keep your hands in like one area, let's just say the lat, and it starts to create a lot of heat. It really does. And the muscle tissue will then start to get warmer. So all it is just heat.
Got
and
it.
and that's what they teach in massage school and any other advanced course with deep tissue. So I had to tell that guy, I was like, listen, like, you're right, but in general terms, the public eye that's going to see this video, and it's more going to be an athlete, it's going to be like, yo, I got some nasty knots, like I need that elbow dropped right in there, like I need some deep tissue. So it's just the common terminology.
Got it, guys. It's like a misnomer almost. It's just a catch-all term that people use, but it doesn't really like mean that. And so interesting. So, um, to kind of like go back a little bit, I know you work with, you just mentioned Missy. She's been on the show a couple of times in the past. I haven't had Flex on yet, but so how did you get into like dealing with these like high level athletes? I know you said that earlier, you had an amateur career, you kind of fell into like massage therapy. Like how did that transition happen for you?
It happened, it all started with Missy Truscott, actually.
Okay.
It all started with Missy. Before I met Missy, though, I was just working in, well, since I had been a bodybuilder previously, athletes in my own community knew me. So they're like, okay, Miguel knows what we go through, so let's go to him. Um, but then I started traveling for work, and that really started sprucing up my IG page. And Missy Truscott ended up finding me on social media, on Instagram. She saw
Mhm.
one of my craziest videos that I've ever put out there, and was like, I'm down for this. Can you help me? And I'm like, absolutely. Where you at? And she told me where she was. I'm like, oh, I could be there this weekend. And, we set up the appointment. And from session one, Missy saw the value. I think it was
Mhm.
like 2, 3 days later, she messaged me back again and was like, I feel so good. Everything feels good. The workouts are feeling better. Like I'm getting a massive pump. like, can you work with me again? And can you continue working with me,
Mhm.
for the Olympias and things like that? And I was like, oh man, this is like, I think I was just at the right place at the right time. And, luckily she saw one of my craziest videos and messaged me on it. But Missy really, really opened up the doors for the torture room to get introduced to everybody that I know now and knows me.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Sometimes it's like that, just being, well, one, being good at what you do, which you obviously are, and then like just being at the right place at the right time, that, like you said, that's pretty amazing. So you mentioned the video, like what was the craziest video? I'm curious now.
It was a guy actually had his shoulder was fixated and he couldn't raise his arm above his head. It was his shoulder blade just wouldn't move. So he had obviously range of motion issues. So obviously he's all like, pointing towards his back, his shoulders, things like that. I decided to start working on his sternum and his rib cage. And this guy's like, oh man, like, I don't know about that. Like, it's my shoulder. And I'm like, it's the mechanics of the muscle.
Uh-huh.
And and it's one reason why I like to go live on Instagram. I call it the torture room theory. I talk about my theory of massage and why certain muscle groups get locked up.
Mhm.
So I'm like, we got to track the source. So I started on his rib cage, and the guy was just screaming his head off so bad. He was knocking over my camera. I kept that in the video. I mean, he was screaming bad. I had so many DMs on that one. And he came out looking like he was in a car wreck, but he was able to move his shoulder afterwards and was like, dude, I feel amazing. It was brutal while it was happening, but it felt amazing after. And that was the video that Missy saw and actually
Yeah.
commented on and was like, can you help me? And
That's wild how you can have like like one problem somewhere, but it's related to like something totally like in a different area in the body. Now, like when you decided, okay, I'm gonna work on your rib cage, right? Because I think that's gonna like help them. Is this something that you've like learned through just doing it, a bunch of times, experience, or is this something that you've learned like through like studying and like in a classroom setting? Like how did you come about with like understanding or having your theory of, like you mentioned, massage therapy?
um, I would say 70% experience
Mhm.
and 30% taking additional courses on anatomy. Um, but it's massage therapy is, I believe, is all experience. And I get to talk to a lot of different massage therapists, actually all over the world, and we go video chat because they want to pick my brain on things. Because depending on who you work with, the muscle tissue feels different. It's all about how the muscle tissue feels and what the issue really is. When I asked this gentleman to like just move his arm in basic motions, like, can you try to touch the ceiling, just moving that way, or bring your arm out laterally. I actually noticed that his lat was seizing up. So his lat
Mm.
was holding onto that shoulder. So, but in my experience, I've learned if a lat is not moving properly, the anterior serratus meets up with it, helps the lat move. So
Mhm.
they're both going to work together and they both go up to the shoulder blade.
And was he an athlete or was this just a regular person?
No, he was just a regular Joe, man.
Uh,
He's a pretty cool guy. I think he does a lot of like social media stuff. He helps businesses grow.
Gotcha.
Um, but yeah, he was not athletic in any way. But I don't know what happened to his shoulder. But I asked him two basic questions, like, did you injure it, or do you know if anything's broken in there? He's like,
Mhm.
nothing's broken, and I didn't injure it. And I'm like, did you just wake up one day and it just got this? You couldn't move it? And he was like, pretty much, yeah. He goes, it was hurting. And then one day it was hard for me to
Mhm.
move this shoulder, just doing basic things like getting in and out of his car. So
Yeah, that's so strange, right? Like when you don't have like an actual like point of like the cause of the problem, it just all of a sudden like happens. You if you're that individual, it's like you gotta be really nervous, right? Because it's like literally didn't do anything, and my arm is not moving the way it's supposed to, like that. So I'm sure he was super appreciative of your help.
yeah, those are the hardest sessions to decipher when
Mhm.
when your client gives you no real story, no real answers, they're like, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just woke up and this is how it feels. Like usually people will be like, oh, I slipped, or, "Yeah, I was trying to
Right.
squat 500 pounds and my hips are," I'm like, okay, well,
Right.
that's probably why, but
Yeah.
when somebody definitely has no answers for you, you kind of have to kind of palpate the body a little bit to see what's overworking, what's underworking, what
Hmm.
muscles are seized up. And it's kind of just breaking it down like a little puzzle.
Hmm.
But it always leads up to their point of like, this is where the trauma is. It's at the shoulder. So everything we did started below and then worked up to the shoulder.
Interesting. So let me ask you this. You obviously you deal with a lot of like athletes, like big time athletes, as we just mentioned before. How, and I know biomechanics might not be like your necessarily expertise, but how much, like how many of these issues that you encounter that you have to help with massage therapy is like bad biomechanics on the part of the athlete, the way they train? For example, and what I mean by that is like they're not squatting the right way, they're not lifting properly. Do you run into that a lot?
Um, with the level of athletes I work with now, no.
Okay.
More with amateur athletes or people just barely day one getting into the gym. Because
Hmm.
when it's your first time in the gym and you never really trained or anything, let's say you're training for a triathlon or a marathon, and it's day one, you really don't know. You're learning, so
Hmm.
in your mind you think, I got to keep going. I got to keep going. So it's more that happens more with amateur athletes.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, I'm sure like Flex and Missy don't need any like help with biomechanics at
Uh,
at this point in their
the thing
career.
with people at that level, it's overworking the muscle because they're just, I call it the athlete mentality. No matter
Hmm.
what their body's going through, they're gonna figure out a way to do more reps, to do another set. They're just gonna
Sure.
keep going. And but I'm glad that Missy, Flex, and so many other, especially in the pro league, they really see the value of massage therapy.
Hmm.
They really do, but it's just not a topic that's talked about. No one really everyone talks about like, oh, how do you get your biceps big, or how
Right.
did you get those booty gains, what exercise was it?
Yeah.
It's like you can exercise a muscle all day, but if you're not getting the right tissue work and the right health care to keep the body at optimum level, it's
Right.
not going to enhance and perform as well. So
Yeah.
and massage is just, I think it's just the treatment that's behind the curtains, and I want to expose it. I
Hmm.
want I want everybody to know what really happens, like how is it that people can manage to even grow, you know
Hmm.
through massage therapy.
Well, I mean, like to your point, if you've got a lot of, or like you mentioned, hypoxia is the term, but if you've got a lot of fibrotic tissue, I mean, there's no way that you're going to grow to your optimal levels. I mean, that's just that's common sense, even for somebody who doesn't really know like the anatomy as much. It's like when you have something that's just kind of like a lump, they're preventing and everything from working the way it's supposed to, is just not going to, no matter how hard you train. So, but it's I do feel like, just from like my interactions with people, that recovery, along with massage therapy and cryo and other things, is a topic that people talk about more than in the past, but it's still not to the level, like you said. It's people want to focus on like instant gratification. Like they want to focus on, okay, well, how do I get my, like you said, my biceps bigger? Oh, well, you do this, you do that. You'll get a little bit of, benefit, but they don't want to necessarily focus and put energy into the base,
Hmm.
if that kind of makes sense. And so, yeah, I definitely like agree with you with that. Do you think that, and this is going to kind of like change a little bit of the conversation, but do you think that it's a financial issue? Do you think people just have a hard time affording to because what we talked about, massage therapy is really important, but it kind of does need to be a consistent thing. Do you notice that?
Yeah, finance for sure is one of the biggest issues why people won't get a massage.
Mhm.
You know, that's the number one reason. It's finances, and then it's time consuming.
Mhm.
Second one is time. People nowadays live on a schedule. And you know, depending on what how their life is, you know, some people are single, some people are married, some people are
Yeah.
single with kids, some people have two jobs. And on top of that, trying to do two a days in at the gym or prep, that's stressful enough as it is.
Yeah.
To give yourself 1 hour, um, you know, for a massage, you know, when it's a time issue, people think it's that massage is a luxury. And it's like,
Right.
no, this can really, really enhance your physique, you know, because the massage changes as some, and and this is only strictly with like the NPC and IFBB athletes. The massage treatment changes depending on where they're at, whether they're in a growth season or in a prep.
Mhm.
So obviously we're not going to go aggressive scraping when they're like 3 weeks out. So it changes, and all the tissue work we did and during their growth season is not going to be the same type of massage that we do during a prep season. It's two totally different treatments. Um, but on the base though, the average is finances.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. I didn't think about time. I mean, an hour doesn't seem like a lot, but it's a lot when you've got like most of your day filled up, with things happening. Like you said, two a days. I mean, just two a day workouts is as tough as it is, plus add another hour. But I think what you kind of hit it on the head when you said people view it as a luxury. They think it's just something like extra to add
Yeah.
on, but not as a necessity, which it really truly is. You said that it's different based upon like what's part of the season that you're in. I mean, I know you probably we don't have time to go into like absolute details, but in general, like what are the differences between being like close to show date or in prep as opposed to like off season? Like, what would you
Um,
say?
when they're in growth season, it's more aggressive. That's when I actually introduce more of the scraping, more of the gua sha into it. And the whole purpose of that is to keep the muscle tissue pliable. Because everybody wants to grow. That's why it's a growth season. You want to grow as much as you can, and then when you diet in your prep, whether it's a 12, 16, or 20-week prep, you want to see the finished product. So during the grow, we're more aggressive. We break up a lot of that fibrotic tissue. There's more scraping and a lot of stretching, just so the muscle has room to move and grow to get more blood flow as they do their drop sets and heavy sets. And when they're in prep, it's more superficial. It's more fascia related. As long as you can keep the fascia, loosened up, then the muscle still has room to grow. Because fascia can tighten up so much that it limits the muscle from moving. And then you have like range of motion issues and things just feel tight and annoying. So when it gets to prep, especially closer and closer to show day, then we focus more on fascia release and just muscle manipulation.
Interesting, interesting. Do you have this is gonna be a kind of funny question, but do you have recovery? I know we talking about recovery, but is there
Yeah.
a recovery to your massages? Like in the past, and this is nothing like what you do. Like I've always heard like, oh, you need to drink a lot of water after a massage. Is there a protocol that you suggest after a type of massage that you like put on people?
No, just stay hydrated, but mostly
Mhm,
everybody I work with drinks plenty of water. If
mhm.
anything, I tell them to take an additional dose of some BCAAs to help with muscle recovery. But no, it's like you can get a torture room session and go straight to the gym floor and work out immediately right
Interesting.
after. You'll
And
actually get you'll actually get a bigger pump and better blood flow,
hmm,
and you'll get more out of the workout if you go into a torture room session and then go to the gym floor. But you have to prep for that. Not everybody's ready for that one.
got it.
So if you've never done it before, then you might want to reverse it. Get your workout in first, and then rest after the massage session. But when the body's very unique, it can really get adjusted to what you're putting it through. So when it knows it's going through some scraping sessions, it knows that you're not always going to be all red and bruised up. The muscle tissue then receives it pretty well. You might be a little red, and by the evening, everything's back to normal.
Interesting.
Where
So
where first time users are bruised for like 3 or 4 days.
got it. So like initially when you get a first session, you might be bruised for a while, but then as you do it more, your body gets used to that pressure and the work that you put on it. So then the skin and the muscles just kind of react differently. Is that
Yeah. And
recover
that's how I
faster?
and that's how I end up knowing that the muscle tissue is very healthy now.
Mhm.
There's not a lot of corrosion inside those muscle fibers. It's that fibrotic tissue, the lactic acid buildup, all that's not lingering there anymore. So the tissue's healthy. And there's some people that come in and they get a full body scraping for like 2 hours. Some people get it for
Wow.
some people get it for 3 hours, like full body. We name it stomach, calves, biceps,
Mm.
triceps, and they walk out of there no bruises at all, none at
That's
all.
that's insane. I can't
And
like just thinking about somebody getting scraped for like even 45 minutes to me is like, oh, like
yeah,
but yeah,
but
that's
again, only a few people do that, but they had to work their way up to that, you know,
sure. Yeah.
and they actually feel the benefits, and they start noticing that their muscle is starting to receive more blood flow during the workout, so their pumps last longer,
Mhm.
as they're, whatever diet they're on to help them promote more muscle growth. The body just receives everything so much more.
Interesting. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So as far as you're concerned, as this practitioner of this aggressive therapy, and how do you like schedule your sessions? Is it take a lot out of you to do, like you said, a 3 hour scraping session? I mean, yeah, that sounds to me like a workout for you, That's
It is. It does. I'm fortunate enough that I can go back to back all day.
really interesting.
Yeah, I really don't need a lot of breaks. I may take a 15-minute break here and there. But uh, I'm more exhausted mentally
Mm-mm.
because everybody is different. And, I have to conform to every person's body and where they're at in their training and whether they have issues that they need me to address. So 1 hour could be like my neck and shoulders. The next hour is the psoas. The next hour is like the ankle mobility in the foot. And then it's
Mhm.
like, so every hour is so different. And so mentally I get exhausted where I'm like, man, I need to be on top of my game with that. Cause you need to know the human body really well and its mechanics, how it works and what they're putting themselves through, you know.
Got it. Got it. So do you yourself get massages as well, or you don't have time for that?
That's the famous question everybody asks me. I'm gonna say here on record, no, I do not get massages on the regular. I
Mhm.
I do more meditation and yoga to
Mhm.
keep myself in check, to
Got it.
keep my body feeling healthy. So my morning routine is, 30 minutes meditation and 20 minutes yoga.
Got it. Got it. Yeah. No, and I kind of like almost thought you would say that just because you're so focused on like helping other people like that. I find that like usually people that are so focused on helping others, they tend to like not necessarily do that same thing for themselves. But yeah, so are you now? So you said you're located in the Dragon's Lair. Is that like where your base is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And do you fly out for like for I guess I don't know how you would say. Do you fly out for like jobs outside of that Dragon's Lair? You
Hmm.
do. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, right now I'm only flying out to Seattle,
Hmm.
um, to work with Missy and a bunch of other pros out there and other upcoming athletes.
Yeah.
So
I saw Missy was a little while ago. She was training in the Dragon's Lair with Flex, right? Is that
yeah,
she came
yeah.
down for a little bit?
I keep
Seem,
inviting her back.
yeah, she seemed like she was, I mean, she was having a great time training hard. What did you, and this is going to be kind of not massage therapy related, but what did you think about like the last Olympia where she came in second? And did you get a chance to see it? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I saw it. I saw, obviously my heart broke, and my stomach sunk, and I was like, it was a shock to me, but I think it was also a shock to a lot of other people.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah, I didn't want to say my point of view before you said yours because I didn't want to like kind of skew anything, but I was shocked. I mean, I
yeah,
was completely, utterly shocked. I was like,
yeah,
how is this even possible? But but that's the game, right? So unfortunately.
it's she talked about that with Flex, and
Hmm.
I don't know what was said on that conversation, but every athlete goes through wins and losses. But I remember talking to her personally the day after the Olympia. She came up, her and Matt came up to my room. Matt wanted to get one last massage session there. And obviously Missy was still hurting about that one, but I kind of told her like, hey, every athlete takes a loss, and it can either fuel you, or it could or it could just break you. But
Yeah.
I remember telling her like, it happens to the best of us. And even big time Jay Cutler lost
Yeah.
after 2 wins, and he came back with a vengeance.
Yeah.
And now that's an iconic moment in bodybuilding. The quad stomp and just his overall physique. I think that was the best Jay Cutler anybody's ever seen. And
Yeah.
I'm like, great athletes can just come back with a vengeance, and that fueled something in her.
Mhm.
And she was like, hell yeah. She was like, you know what? I mean, you have to. I mean, when you're at the top of the game, when you're running top 2 at the Olympia, best in the
Right.
world, you got to come back with a better package and something new. And I think that's what she's doing this year. And well, she is doing it this year. And
Mhm.
I think she's keeping a lot of people in the dark on this one.
Mhm.
I don't even know what she's doing. I just know I'm just there to fix her up.
Yeah.
But I see her training videos, the mini clips she puts on her stories, and she's training hard. And
Yeah.
she just started her new training camp, the Truscott training camp, and
Mhm.
so everyone's going to be real surprised and really happy to see what she brings to this year's Olympia.
Yeah, I'm excited. And I think you kind of hit the nail on the head when you said something new. I think she was so dominant and so good for so long that it can't like it's a weird thing to say, but it's like because she's coming in so consistent and there's nothing new, maybe they and again, I'm just speculating, but maybe they went with something a little different. And so like maybe if she comes with something different herself,
Mhm.
it'll draw their eyes to her a little bit more. I don't agree with the decision, but I'm just speculating. That's could be something, there like that. So, but anyways,
Right,
yeah.
right.
Yeah. So, yeah. Well, hey, Miguel, thanks so much for taking the time out of your day. I know you're real busy. You got a lot going on, so I greatly appreciate you coming on, talking about recovery, talking about massage therapy. It's an important subject. A lot of people don't quite understand it, but hopefully, this podcast and anything else that you do in the future will help bring that more to light. How can people reach out to you if they do want to, hire you?
It's straight through my Instagram, and I have all my contact information on there, like my phone number and my email, or just shoot me a DM on IG. IG is the only social media I have at the moment.
Got it.
So just contact me through there or straight through the Dragon's Lair. I'm on their I believe I'm on their website.
Okay. Awesome.
And yeah.
So guys, I'm going to link everything at the bottom so it'll be easier for you to click to get to Miguel and hire him for massage therapy. Thanks again, Miguel. I really appreciate it.
Hey man, thanks for having me on, bro. All
All right, you take care. Have a great day.
right. Later.